Good morning. How are you doing? In dancing chairs. You're out of microphone. We will get you one. How are you doing? It's my honor to be here with you. It's my honor to join Aapresid. Argentina is never easy, but, well, being born in 1989, that was a complicated year. Yet, see how strong Aapresid is walking, how a pioneer it was. Counter-cyclical, and today no-till is basically installed and it is exported to the world as a method. So congratulations. If this were a TV show, I would be really happy because you have it all. You have personalities like celebrities, histories behind. You will just love it. Sole is here with us. How are you doing? I'm happy to be here. Jorge is here. Jorge López Menéndez. Lucas and Jeremiah is here. But I want them to introduce themselves. This is how they regard themselves. Why don't you show the institutional card you have about yourselves? What are you? Well, good morning to you all. It's my pleasure to be in this panel. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Jeremías Olmedo. I'm from Rosario de la Frontera, Salta. I'm a sports person. I'm a pilot. What's your speed? We move fast, 240, 250, depending on the circuit. But what matters the most is the curve, the speed that cars have. This lecture will yield itself to talking about lots of things. There's closed curves, and maybe when you walk, you see them small. You cannot turn that quickly, and we turn at 270 kilometers per hour. This is where you feel the G force, the lateral force that gives you the speed in the car. What you believe the curve to be, it is no longer what it is. And then you have to add the bias. We will go back to this, but do please tell us about the path, the tarmac from this to Earth. Car racing is very related to the field, with many companies that have their pilots, the ones representing them. And a long time ago, we had the possibility to take our races on roads. We passed through different places of Argentina, and this is where we grew strong. And it's this close approach that TC has with the field. So did you think this presentation was okay? We will give a round of applause. You do have to take your car to 250 kilometers per hour, to that speed. Who are you, lady? I was kind of relaxed here. Well, I find it hard to say who I am. You are a psychologist and you will say this lady has an issue. Well, I feel that I'm a woman. I'm the daughter of a mechanic and a housewife. I'm a singer, a wife, a mother, a granddaughter, a businesswoman, a dreamer. At some point in life, I went for bigger speeds than you, but now I'm unwinding. I am trying to flavor other moments, other conversations. At some point, my life was all music, all singing, but I had a family then, and I realized there's other ways to enjoy. And I am an entrepreneur. I believe that we still have a lot to know and to get to know. This is why I say it's difficult for me to say who I am, because life is all about constant movement. I was a person a second ago, and I am probably a different person now. How about the field? I live in a place with 7,000 inhabitants. You turn around and you are in the middle of the countryside. I run there. Industries in general have to do with the countryside. I live at the centers, at the soybean center of the country. I remember my uncle's house. After having spaghetti, I would run in the middle of the field as Laura Ingalls to play with my cousins, to play soccer, to climb trees, to eat tangerines behind my grandfather's tractor. He would plow the land. It was a tractor without a booth. If it was really hot in summer, the seat was boiling hot, knowing that my uncle would not be there for Christmas or for the birth of his children, seeing those harvesting machines with all the gear on the road at 2 kilometers per hour, trips that would take forever. Of course, at school we were taught how to germinate a seed, but my relation with the countryside and with the farm has to do with freedom, with my way of understanding life, the wisdom that the countryside gives you, the life cycle. You can notice that it makes you wiser. My Italian grandmother, she would grow her orchard until she was 90-something. In the cities, we don't get to see the life cycles. Horizons are not that far. We see the building in front of us, 50 meters from us. There is a long view of life and of cycles that can be seen in the countryside, in the farm. That's so poetic and so nice. Thank you. We will go back to you, Sole. Lucas. I would like to thank Aapresid for inviting me to such a wonderful panel. Maria Amelia, we will discuss about this. I am happy being here with you. People define me. Sebas Katopodis is a coordinator of Jornaderos, and he laughs because some say that I run 300 kilometers per hour to keep up with the game of speeds. But in connection to who I am, I like to start by saying who I am. I am the son of Dolores. I am the third of 6 siblings. I'm native from Pergamino, and I am the father of Silvestre. I have an 8-month-old kid who changed my life. I'm the president of Jornaderos and whatnot. There's something that defines me quite well. After having lived some time out abroad in Australia and New Zealand, I've chosen Argentina for the last 4 years with a lot of persuasion, and this makes me who I am. I am an optimist and a protagonist as well, because I live in Argentina, I choose Argentina, I do in Argentina, in Jornaderos, in Barbechando Foundation, and in other spaces from this optimism. It's not idealistic. I don't wait for things to happen. I'm a protagonist. Wherever I see a problem happening or a need that is unmet, I try to take action. I then go to the rural sector. I connect in my association business owners with students. I'm a member of Barbechando Foundation, another initiative, no longer claims, but rather action being taken. I defend the agribusiness at legislatures, both central and provincial. And I'm bringing down Travessia, an Australian venture that takes a stake in Argentina to transform the waste industry in Argentina. Wow. There's a phrase I like and that deserves this round of applause, actually. Because being an optimist but a protagonist at the same time, We can be optimist or pessimist. We all can be that. But how do we move from slouching in the couch to taking action? And the panel before closed with a phrase. I don't know who said it, but it's key. And this is what we have to take from this. Who is the change? We are agents for change. The change is not in a third person, it's on the first person, both singular and plural. What can I do? What can we do in our square meter? How to stop roaming or complaining and moaning to doing. And we will then talk about all the roadblocks, frustrations, and disappointments, but then pleasure, realization. That is that journey that happens when you go out of your comfort zone. You no longer complain, you start taking action. So the case of all of them is wonderful. And please listen to the one that comes next, because if you say, I choose Argentina, you do choose to stay. Where else can you go and try your luck? Why don't you introduce yourself and say where you thought about going? Good morning. Thank you, Aapresid, again. I am quite involved with Aapresid. We've been talking about running at 300 kilometers per hour. My difference is that I cannot talk the same way he can. So I sidetracked. I like to give importance to family. I have 4 siblings I love and I walk with them. I have 3 children who changed my life. Who am I? I'm an agricultural engineer. I'm a farmer. Never did I have my own farm. Never did my family have their own farm. So I consider myself, well, Sole, you said something very nice. I'm from everywhere, but I am from Argentina. And my profession drove me into a very nice adventure. I went to Africa. Where in Africa? Sierra Leone. That was my starting point. So this is the imaginary map of Africa. Where is Sierra Leone? Is it down, like in the south? It's like in front of Argentina, across. They are at the same latitude. The Atlantic separates them. What did you go there to do? Well, I was having a number of companies here in Argentina. We were not having a good time. I was no exception. The field was suffering, the farm was suffering. I didn't like my life. I spent more time with accountants or lawyers than in the farm. And I had the chance to go to a 20-day consultancy to Africa, to Sierra Leone. I climbed on the plane. I told my wife, I will take these 20 days off to relax. So you go to Sierra Leone to relax? Did I hear you? Okay. Imagine what Argentina was like. We were kind of complicated, 2 years droughts, lots of political complications and whatnot. And I had to clear my mind. I said my miles were enough to buy a ticket for me to go to Sierra Leone. So I went to the middle of the field, to the countryside. The one hiring me was down in the capital, but the field was 9 hours drive from that place. Just so you realize where I was, I took a mirror of the tractor and I went into communities. An elderly woman I spoke with, I showed the mirror to her and she's scared at the view because it was the first time in her life she saw herself on a mirror. So what language did you start talking with her? They spoke Creole, misspoken English, and then we had translators. And you would advise them on what? They were producing, they were growing rice. I came there. We all are farmers. We are quite fanatics. And I started seeing millions of hectares, lost down in the horizon, a wonderful field, dark brown earth or soil, and people in famine next to that. There's this kind of land you have and you cannot feed on this. I was speaking with my sister and I said, what do I want to do? Dairy farm and bring machines, and these have to be like tractors moving and coming. And I would write down ideas like crazy. And I spoke with my sister and I started telling her. I met a group, I joined in a community. It was the first time they saw a white person. Kids would scare, they would run away from me. And she said, I haven't seen you so happy for a long time. And then it dawned on me. I said, what the heck have I been doing with my life so far? Can you individualize what made you happy there? Well, I realized, well, why did I study agriculture? I enjoyed producing food, my connection with the farm. I have a social side of me. And when I was there, all that I've learned all my life in Argentina, at school, and in my experience here, it had a direct effect on people. People harvest less than 500 kilos of rice. You know, women, young girls stop eating, then women, then the son, and then the father, the one that is in charge of producing food. I couldn't believe my ears. I thought it was just a representation. You came to a house, they had done okay. They had 30 kids. And those that hadn't fared or boded well, they went to one of those houses, and we managed. It was really difficult. I can talk about lots of things, from 300 kilos through to 3,000 kilos. See the wonderful change, the drastic change in the community. The first time we started harvesting, we would fund so they would harvest more supplies. We taught them, we gave them money, and they had to return in rice. And they would pick up 1,500 kilos. They did have money to pay, and I couldn't get paid. I wanted to understand why they would not pay. I said, if you pay, you get credit again. We grow together. And our project was running complicated, the sustainability, I mean. And I came into a house and I said, you harvested a lot. Why are you paying any back? The room where they would sleep was full of pouches of rice. And I said, you have lots of rice. And he said, I can give you whatever, but I won't be giving you any rice. I mean, he starved before. He won't be giving you the food he now has. I mean, here I have 3 years worth of food. Just leave me alone. And then we started with a lot of creativity. How do you pay? Cash proxy, a crop they wouldn't eat, such as corn. Well, we will go back to your anecdotes. It's amazing. You know, bags of rice were not tradable goods. They were their basic need that was not a commodity. What is, Jeremías, the bridge that brings your passion for car racing together with the farm?
Well, first of all, my family owns farms. My father is a farmer. So as I was a kid, I would be at the farm the whole day. We had barbecue on Sundays at the farm, playing with my cousins at the farm. And there, as I told you, these car racing thing started when I was racing in the roads. My father used to go with my grandfather to the races, and they were the ones that motivated me. I started with kartings when I was 5, and we grew together. We moved forward from one category to the next. As I grew older, I had to change categories, always with my father by my side and the support of my family. And, well, until now, I'm in TC Pista, that's the category. It's very difficult. Here in Argentina, we have the best level. When I was young, I would come twice or 3 times per month from Salta to participate in Argentine competitions, in regional competitions. I also run abroad in Italy. So that's the connection, the direct connection I have with the farms, because my family they're farmers. I'd like to ask you, because there's always some part that has to do with the cars and another thing with creativity and the talent, whether it's a tractor or a production or with a car? How much is there of the pilot and of the car? Well, in car racing, the car is very important. Of course, it's the combination is it that makes it work. But we pilots, we depend a lot on a good car, a good engine, and then there are lots of factors that have to be together, and everything has to be perfect to achieve a great result. I mean, you can lose a race because perhaps a screw is loose and you have a problem because in the engine. Well, but not everybody is comfortable speaking well about oneself. But what are you especially good at as a pilot? I think I'm good running races. I'm good at running races. Some are very good at speed. So when classifying, I mean, they're very fast. I'm working to improve that. I find it more difficult, but I'm very thoughtful when I drive. I design my strategy before the final race, that is the longest. It's 20-25 tours in 40-45 minutes. So I think a lot before doing a maneuver. I always consider adding points and perhaps not running the risk of having an accident and being left out of the race. So the word strategy appeared. Planning. What about you, Sole? You revitalized the soybean party in Arequito. I think your father has started that, right? Well, it's a party that is celebrating its 45th anniversary. At the beginning, for the town of Arequito, it was the event of the year. The farming and the agri-industry there was very important. And I used to climb all the machinery. I loved always climbing. I think I'm so short that I always needed help. So I used to go to this event. My father at the beginning was the one that would show the queen of this event all around the country. So I visited all the country on an old car. It was a brown Felin. It was a dark brown car. So I visited the wine growers party. I mean, lots of national feasts that are connected to crops and to Argentina. So initially, I was 8 and I used to sing on that stage. It was an honor. Then, well, this event went through difficulties because, as we mentioned, Argentina depends a lot on the weather. Last year, we were discussing how the drought years also are the same years as the bad years for the country. I mean, the economy and the rules are not that clear. Many things that we can discuss that I'm not going to discuss because I'm not an expert. But as this event has to be sustained, and also because I decided to live in my town. I go to my town, and the first thing I say is this is the soybean hub of the country. I used to say that all the time. I'm from Arequito, the soybean hub of the country. And then this discussion started as to, well, the farming sector and this and that, and I started to feel weird. I don't know if it was good or bad to say that. So for many years, I didn't say anything. Well, that's terrible. Now I'm going to insist on this. Yeah, people think that I'm a landowner. That's not the case. I'm a singer. That's my profession. But I do have uncles that are contractors in the farms. Everything around me is connected to the farm. So I decided to renew the soybean party. Last year we were 3, were very few. And I said, this has to be done, but everything evolves. We have to find another way of doing it. Billy helped us, so we started organizing a dinner party with lots of businessmen that, of course, supported us with panels. I mean, you have a dinner, but you also listen to talks and there are discussions. And I also learned a lot because I lived there, but I didn't know a lot about the topic. So I just repeated what was said in the media. So I realized that we need more communication. I realize that in a country that lives on what happens in the farming sector, because everything is the same, because the farms feed the city feeds the farm. It's a cycle, so we cannot have that disconnect. Call it perhaps the limit of the city. We all want to be successful, and if there are different and better ways of doing things, we have to be willing to learn them. But it's easier, as you say, to just remain seated and say, okay, let's let the others do it, and criticize those that do things. So I decided to be responsible for the place where I live, to add value to this product that has been quite controversial, but is still the strongest sectors in the country, and see what can it give us. That's the idea. And there's also an emotional thing about my father, because then he became the president of the party. With my sister, we continue his legacy. I value family a lot. We have lunch every day together. I mean, I live in my town, and I live a very quiet life. I'm not saying it's better, and I said it before when I talked in the other panel. I'm not here to say my life in my area is better. I have the possibility of being all over the place. I choose Argentina first because I love the people around me, and the people around me is here. And I also think it's a wonderful country. But I'm not saying it's better than others or it's worse than others, because sometimes we are told that everything is wrong in Argentina. Perhaps in the world we are located far from everywhere else. That has been an obstacle for us. And it happens to me with Arequito. To take a plane, I have to drive 380 kilometers. I know that highway. I know where to stop drinking my mate, where I can reload the water. But I do it willingly, and I enjoy it. Let's go back to the idea of the prejudice from the recent past. Sole said, I was very proud of the National Soybean Party, and then I thought, is it convenient for me to mention soybean in this time of the country a few years ago? And there was a very important peak. And then I'd like to ask you whether you feel there's a prejudice, or has it diminished in some sectors? How do you experience that? But I wanted to ask you, Lucas, what about that moment when you work with the kids and you help them join the labor market? Can you tell us something about that process? And there's something that, let's invent it. It's the emotional return of investment. No, everybody can make up acronyms and terms. Let's invent something like the emotional return of investment. That moment where all the effort that you made returns to you, but you didn't monetize it. It became an emotion. So with all the work you do with a boy or a girl, the day they came, I understood I was doing the right thing. Good. There's a lot of members of Jornaderos around. Well, that emotional return of investment is the fuel of this project. And the more we can make them feel that by changing themselves, by experiencing themselves, the beautiful emotional feeling of saying, well, I used to be outside this project. Jornaderos is not a project that has a validation process or admission. It's a simple fact of daring say, what is it? Can I join it? In its 9 years of history, we've never rejected anybody at Jornaderos. However, at universities, people think we are a segmented group, but we are segmented by the proactivity of the people themselves. That's why we're young leaders, because the admission test is leadership. It's But describe it first. Give us a case. And speaking of the emotional return of investment, there are many cases because the largest potential of Jornaderos Agro is the fact that somebody that is giving their first steps as a coordinator on a group, and they say, specifically, for example, Daniela Rios from the city of Buenos Aires, living in Boedo in Buenos Aires. She was studying agricultural production at the UADE University. She had no connection with the farms. One day she came to an exhibition here at La Rural, and she told us, I want to be there. Can I be a part of it? And we said, welcome. You have a challenge ahead. Obtain 15 more people from your university because you cannot do it on your own. So she returned with 15 more people. Dani, since 2016, that's when she started realizing that she was capable of changing her reality and therefore others' reality, she started to feel that emotional return of investment. And that experiment of saying, I've changed and I've changed the lives of others, that emotional return of investment makes us an organization, I always say, in a country where we have fallen in the false belief that everything always has to follow the speed of the slowest, that meritocracy is a bad thing, that if you are the spearhead, you receive more criticism than anything else. Jornaderos Agro has a culture where we pull at everybody's hair because the more I grow and more I learn, I have more opportunities. If I have more, I have to bring something to the place I'm leaving vacant. And that is the engine of Jornaderos, that emotional return of investment. We were discussing with 12 young leaders yesterday. They study, they work, and today they dedicate 20 or 30 hours per week for free to a project that only gives them the conviction of realizing that they can be the leaders of their own lives. That is what Jornaderos Agro does. Excellent. In general, we are full of stories. You know, now it's popular to speak of the stories of great successes. Now there are lots of podcasts about failures. And well, I invite you to fail so we experience it together. It's a horrible thing to fail, but I think it's true that it teaches. I offer an intermediate step. Tell us, in Africa, before that return of investment, that emotional return, the final picture on the waterfalls where we are all happy, before getting there, there's a moment where you almost gave up, the moment of the obstacle. An example of that and the resolution. Well, I love the emotional return of investment. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay for the diapers because I'm a millionaire in the emotional return of investment, but not in the other. In Africa, well, I had lots of failures. Imagine you get to a place. The first feeling I had when I got there, farms and fields, the dream of the agricultural engineer. You decide where you stop your tractor. And the first thing I said, this is so easy. I will bring 2 tractors, a contractor, the seeds, and but that was not the case at all. On the contrary. First, you start valuing what we have in Argentina. From Aapresid, a network that is the clearest example. When you start producing in Argentina in a farm, you raise your phone, you pick up your phone, you have the machinery, you go to the hardmongers, you buy the tools. But there I was on my own with people that didn't know how to drive a tractor. And with the realities I shared before. So it was 10 years of obstacles every day. I can tell you lots of obstacles per day. I learned a lot about psychology because imagine you were dealing with a culture that had a whole history of civil war, famine, starvation. Your brother was kidnapped, actually. Let's say, yeah, that was the first obstacle. Can you tell us briefly? Yeah, I was in this consulting on the 18th day of the 20. I was in the middle of the fields. My phone rang. My sister-in-law told me, your brother has been kidnapped. He was in Nigeria. So I took my motorbike. I took a motorbike It took me 4 hours to cover a distance that would be 9 hours by car. And that something could have happened to me. Imagine my mother, one of her sons kidnapped and the other in hospital. But well, I went to Ivory Coast, then to Nigeria. I was negotiating for 4 days. I was not negotiating with a pro. I mean, I was discussing with a person that had your brother and told you, well, let's continue later because now I'm going to pray. And they left you waiting for a couple of hours. So that was the worst. But what you said, failures, obstacles, whatever. The story had a happy ending, fortunately. We were at the Argentinian embassy talking to my brother's friends and my family. But inside myself, I thought, I want to stay here. I don't want to leave. I didn't want to share this with my mom, but, well, so we came back with my brother, and then I told my mother, I'm going back there. What else, son, do you want to happen to convince you to come back? What else could happen? And my wife, of course, she's a genius. I had made my mind already. I use psychology. She's a psychologist as well. And I told her, honey, we have bought the tickets already. I had the contract. And fortunately, she said, okay, let's do it. And so what Sole was saying, it's very tough. I also love my family, my friends, and that was the most difficult part. All the other obstacles could be overcome, but I couldn't find these things there, and this is what made me come back. My family, friends, Argentina as a whole. I agree. We are not an awful country. I mean, but when you're abroad, you realize, as everybody says, when you are abroad, you miss a lot. And I was fortunate to live in many countries, but you can't live anywhere the way you live in Argentina. Jeremías, this is the final part, the final section of the race. We don't speed up, just summarize. What can you share about the prejudice or the residual prejudice that can still be there between the farm and the city and the farm, that frontier that we know if it's imaginary or real? What do you think about it? Yeah, that happens. As I said, I live here in Buenos Aires now for 3 years now. I'm studying, and it happens sometimes. Well, I have this dialect from my province that is different from the way they speak here, so they notice that all the time, and they make you know it. Of course, some things happen here that do not happen in smaller towns in the provinces, but I don't see in my experience, I don't see that big difference. Of course, the times are different here, the traffic, as you said as well, it was difficult for me to be alone on a Sunday and not go to my aunt's house or to my grandma's house and get together for lunch. But those are things that I decided to leave aside to keep growing in what I do in sports. But yeah, that prejudice exists. I'm studying agricultural production. I've studied with many students that also come from the provinces. And of course, perhaps they don't tell you, but you feel it. And how do you feel on the tractor? How do you feel on the tractor? Well, I like both things. When I can go to Salta, to my province, I go to the farm a lot with my father. Perhaps I don't drive the tractor so much because it has its own drivers, but whenever I have the chance all the time, I like to do it. Good. Sole, let's take the proposal here that has to do with neither rural nor urban. That frontier, is it imaginary for you? How do you experience that? Because I must confess that I'm not sure. I mean, at some point, the construct in the media was impossible, how they stigmatize the farm because soybean is a wheat that grows on its own. So if it grows on its own, why are you there? That was terrible. All those years passed. I don't know what state of that. What do you feel about it?
I believe you have to act according to your own values. We live according to a context that surrounds us. I do understand that those who live in the city cannot see that infinite horizon, and those who live in the countryside can't understand that they may have next to you a wall. We have to mutually understand each other. In connection to, constructions, we have to be smart and we have to be cunning. A construction, whether by a media or by an ideology, divide people. We first are together, our feelings, our loved ones. As Jeremías says, it's difficult for those that come from the lowlands, coming down to the capital city. You come across speed and whatnot, but I fell in love. Of course, I had my own way of speaking about things or saying things, and people would poke fun of me. And there's a lot of things that have to do with folklore. The music that I chose to sing, it's not on the pop radio. I also take responsibility for the fact that folklore wasn't able to represent people in the last few years. We could talk about this for 2 hours, but you did make a revolution around it. You revitalized it. You brought it down to new generations. I remember how that was. I had no judgment. I followed my heart. There was no strategy behind my career. I was a girl playing on stage. That's what I did at the time. Then I had to grow, and that was the most difficult thing, to grow in public, in front of the view of everybody who said, if you wear makeup, you will change your nature. We live in a society that is quite judgmental, and we find it difficult to think without judgment. The new generations are changing this, however. Lack of knowledge. The pandemic, that was the worst thing that could ever happen to us in the last few years. Since we couldn't travel abroad, it taught us to go back to the country. This happened to me because I'm a musician, and I learned that people from Salta, they have their own way of thinking about things. People in San Juan have their own, and that's what I learned. I mimic the places. I get local in every place, and we have this capacity to adjust. We won't change our true nature, but we can adjust. And this is something that we need to change. Those of us who live in the countryside, we sometimes also lift a wall to separate us from others. So how can we get the interest to this type of meetings by people who are not so interested in the countryside? Do we call Sole, who has popularity on TV? That's not the case. We need to do different things with an exchange, with culture, with sports, and with what we do, because we all are part of the same. Lucas, well, I don't want to miss on the opportunity. I fully agree with you, Diego. This is past. We had a very poor fortune to have part of the politicians in Argentina that devoted their time to dividing us, to putting us in a place that did not bode well with us. The countryside, the farm, made a self-critique process, and we capitalized on this. Those days are over. There's things in Argentina that are long gone. The countryside and the city are different things. They coexist in many places, and that's healthy. Farmers, they are not landowners. They don't just seed soybean. That's a thing that is over. And the more entity we give it to it, we will be bringing forward a narrative that is no longer any of any use. We should just take our view to a forward-thinking horizon. I hope that those that placed us in this negative role will never be back in power, and that Argentina takes the place it should have to take. Jorge, you have to close. I agree with you. I think that we made a self-critique of us as a sector, and we did it right. We need to love each other a little bit more, and we did it right. What comes to my mind is, well, I would travel, and when you are in airports, they ask you, what do you do for a living? I've always was a producer, a farmer, and I said so proudly, so we are proud of being farmers. And when I came to Africa, I said farmer, and the guy would look at me and he would say, "You're not a farmer." Yes, I am, but there they equate it with poverty. It's not that they choose to be farmers. They have no other alternative. They just have to grow food for their family. And I also realized that that's the big problem they have, because we are fanatic farmers. You see a farmer in their field, and they give their full creativity. They want 100 kilos more per hectare, and they study, they get trained. They do this there because they have no other way around. In Europe, they are regarded as those who pollute. I am a member of a global farmer network. The idea is to carry forward the message so that they understand that those who are growing are not destroying the planet. We are the ones to care most for our soil because it feeds us. We are creative. It's not the old farm with a tractor, period. My new project, well, that got me interested. When I was called upon, we have to build a company that the youth want to be part of. I'm not old, but I'm not young. I speak with my nieces and nephews and with young people, and I believe that what is opening up is the possibility for those people to be part of the agricultural production. Agricultural production is no longer a house to produce food. There's a lot of sustainability involved. There's technologies that attract the youth. And this is the challenge. They have to adapt to the new wave. This is a reflection of the fact that the youth are saying they want to participate, but we need to hear how. I don't see them climbing a tractor or in the middle of Salta with no Wi-Fi signal. We have to get modernized to current times. Let's give them a round of applause. We thank you very much. We thank you so very much. And I congratulate you. Great narratives communicated in a very powerful way. It was an honor to be here with you. Thank you so much. Well, what does television make you do? In the next block, we have the future is with inclusion. Don't miss.